All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
What up, everybody? We are on. It's our big Friday show. They come from miles around for Friday. You know it. You know it. You know it.
Why are you yelling?
I'm telling him excited. That's why. Albert is with us, everyone. Albert, of course, who works another job, so he can't be here every day.
Albert, thank you.
But we love seeing him, and he does curate Friday Fabulous Florida, and so it is with great deliciousness that we welcome back into our ranks today. Everything okay, Albert?
Today, Mark. Yep.
It is looking
Florida's
good.
Looking great. So
it is looking strong.
That's, of course, not from my hard work. That is Florida's hard work. So
yes, Florida always.
Big shout out.
I love how Florida. Yeah, I love how Florida always
Big shout out.
Puts the points the finger at California like we're a problem state. And I'm going, really? I mean, why? How could we do a segment called Friday Fabulous Florida if you guys weren't serving up, meth heads and gators every week?
Yeah, maybe they're just desensitized to the headlines.
That could be too. Yeah, they're just so used to it. Yeah. Kim is with us too.
Kim, how are you?
And if you were with us yesterday, you know Kim is going rogue, smack talking the host. You missed it, Albert.
What?
Yeah, let me tell you what happened yesterday, and then I want to get to Titanic discoverer Bob Ballard and also Titanic director James Cameron. Both of whom, Cameron's not just the director of Titanic, and of course he helped, I would suggest, build the mythology. Not that you needed to build much. I mean, there was tremendous mythology and tremendous curiosity around Titanic already. But he became one of the world's leading experts in submersibles. I mean, he actually was involved quite intimately in the design of his own submersible and involved with a submersible company. So to hear James Cameron weigh in on this situation with the submersible and that entire doomed mission is not nothing. But you'll hear from the CEO, you'll hear from James Cameron, you'll hear from Bob Ballard, as I say, the guy who discovered the Titanic wreckage and has been on countless dives in submersibles and also with these robot vehicles. And then we'll just kind of discuss some of the details as we put a wrap on this sad event. Then Friday Fabulous Florida, then Jim Avila and Michael Shore on politics. The head of India, the dude who's a top dog in India, is in Washington. India is a complicated, troubled country, vast in population and also vast in terms of its influence on the world in technology and as a consumer-based economy as well. In other words, they are both producers and consumers, so they become important economically. Might be just the bottom line on India. So the problems with leadership in India are associated with the fact that it's a democracy-ish. But it's also there's a brutality about handling opposition, jailing essentially political foes, and frankly a racism there in India. So it's against this backdrop of this troubled place that there's a state dinner held for Modi, and we'll talk a little bit about that with Avila and Shore. I'm sure they've covered many of these state dinners where you're essentially entertaining a head of state of a state that has real problems, where you really can't. Oh, look, we just did it with China. Blinken's visit to China. You can't be okay with a lot of the stuff that China's doing. But let me say this. You can say this about America. Yeah, we're meeting with the Americans. America's a problem country. It's militaristic, expansionist. It exerts its power both militarily and economically across the globe. It has human rights issues, enforces the law in different ways based on economic power of their people. That is to say, the rich don't go to jail, the poor do. They have a enforcing of drug laws that are. You see what I'm saying? I mean, you can build an argument that way too. So I'm not putting India on the same. Excuse me, on the same. In the same category as America. I'm not saying that America is in the same category as India, but I am saying that you can build an argument that, we're not a perfect place either, if you want to think of it that way. So, but it's against all of that backdrop that we'll talk to Avila-Shure and, of course, Hunter Biden and the way in which that plea was played out and also the political ramifications. It's really Avila-Shure's sweet spot. We had Avila weigh in once, as you'll recall, earlier in the week about the interview with Bret Baier that Trump did, but we'll revisit that as well. That's in the 11 o'clock hour. Michael Snyder, the Culture Blaster, movies, television, streaming, all of that with Michael in the 11 o'clock hour as well. So let's get started.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Let me put my credibility glasses on. Oh, but what I was saying before, Albert, is that Kim really went rogue yesterday.
What?
Yeah. So
I don't think so. I think that's kind of...
Well, I wouldn't defend this behavior if I were you, Kim.
There's never been anything like this.
I think you're exaggerating a little bit.
I said, here's exactly what I said. We have Belinda waiting. Can we do a shortened newscast, and then we'll get to Belinda? Is that okay with you, Kim? And what did you say, Kim?
I believe I said something about it would be okay, but you're going to have to close the Marky Mouth. I said Marky Mouth. I did. I don't know where it came from.
Did you really just do that?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I did. But my point was...
Oh, thank you. Here it is. News break, Kim. Would you be cool with that? And then I want to bring Belinda on.
Yes, we can do that, but you're going to have to close the Marky Mouth.
Wow. And people give me a hard time about the way I talk to you.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Okay, so...
Just unreal. You can get away with saying whatever you want. Treating me however you want to. But then when I say one thing, just good-naturedly, I get the, how come you're giving Kim a hard time? Oh, my God, Kim, you were so rude to her.
Yes, we can do that, but you're going to have to close the Marky Mouth.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the...
Oh, that's like... Other
Dude,
than that,
was...
breaking my rule of having drops of us, because it's hard, because I'll play drops of us and it'll confuse the audience. That would be a great drop on a different show. Maybe Nikki's show.
No. That will be a drop here. That is, I think that is an exception. But Albert's right. Typically, we don't have drops of people on the show because it's confusing. But I mean, how can you not have that as a drop?
Gonna have to close the Marky Mouth.
You have to close the Marky. I mean, it wasn't just close the Marky Mouth. It was the way she said it in this condescending way. It was like, wow.
Now, is really
Albert,
put it over the top. Yeah.
People exactly. People give me a hard time for teasing good-naturedly Kim.
So
that I think that is. Wait a minute, I'm talking. I haven't closed my Marky Mouth yet. Albert, in a basketball game, that would be a hard foul. You might be thrown out. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah, they'd definitely take like 30 minutes to review that flagrant foul. Mark.
Yes,
yeah,
I mean,
you're gonna have to close the Marky Mouth.
I mean, I'm sorry. I think that gets you thrown out. But I sat there and took it. Harry says, for your Marky Mouth. What is for your Marky Mouth teeny. Thank you, Harry. Thank you for $10, $5. Kim's rogueness, Marky Mouth, and Chip. I say chip to my cats whenever they misbehave. I know the chip is really so condescending.
What I'm gonna have to close the Marky Mouth.
Is
that if you want a quick newscast, you're gonna have to not talk in the middle of it. If you want me to get through it quickly to get to Belinda, that's what I was trying to say.
Oh my God, it's such a complicated concept. Thank you for explaining it. I didn't know what you meant.
Oh well.
You meant.
You're
please.
So offended
well, we can't.
That
We can't.
I might
we
have
can't
to
have.
lay it out
we can't.
For you.
We can't have any interruptions. Is what you're saying. Well, Mark, I got to get through without any interruptions. I see. But you felt the best way to communicate that was with.
Gonna have to close the Marky Mouth.
Yeah, that was the best way to communicate that. Okay.
Why are you yelling?
Anyway,
you were upset over that all night, weren't you? You were. Stewing.
I'm still upset about it.
Yeah. And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community.
Thank you, Albert. Thank you. I mean, what happened there is just way out of line. You don't smack talk the host like
My
that.
words upset so many people.
Exactly. I don't get it.
Yeah,
I think you should apologize to all the.
my bad.
I don't
I offer this
Sorry.
sincere apology to you today.
Yeah, I haven't gotten a sincere
I
apology.
apologize to all who have been hurt.
Yeah, how about apologizing to all of them? You know, there might be people on my side once in a while. I know they all come to your side all the time, but maybe there are a couple on my side. Maybe you should apologize to them.
No context will
I have to
suffice
Yeah.
to explain the hurt and anguish caused
Thank you.
by my
Anguish. I
words.
forgot about the anguish. The anguish is real.
Ask Courtney, but Perry Joe Jim Bob writes, I wonder if Mark is the kind of guy who talks during movies. Yeah.
Why is that relevant?
You know, like the kind of guy that just never closes the Marky Mouth.
Oh,
Always
I see.
going. You know.
That's great.
Yeah.
Albert, our podcast, the new one that we're going to be doing, is going to be so great. You know, the one without Kim. Yeah.
We're just going to be talking about sports. the
Yeah.
whole
We're
time.
going to be calling it the Marky Mouth podcast. So, yeah, check it out. All right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, it's a supreme tragedy. Look, the Titanic has always fascinated us. I made the point very early on. I might have been one of the first people to make the point right at the beginning that the tragedy with migrants off the Greek coast was something that was certainly not covered to the extent of Titanic. But I think, to be fair, the mythology around Titanic and the history of Titanic, it was understandable, might be the way to put it. Notwithstanding whatever media biases there are, and there are substantial biases that Titanic got, and this exploration and planned mission got all this attention. So let me just put that to the side. The grim realities are these people never had a chance, and that the repeated missions that stressed that cabin the way it was stressed, the actual hull of this vessel was made from an experimental material, never been used for a hull that was going that deep, as you're probably aware by now. And the repeated stressors, the pressure and then the relief of that pressure, and then the pressure again and relief of that pressure over multiple missions, stresses that hull in ways that never were demonstrated to be safe. And what we have learned now through multiple sources who have looked at this, engineers, those who are in this business of submersibles, is that this was a tragically flawed design, and that the designers, essentially the CEO, resisted certification of any kind. And with that preamble, here is the CEO first talking about how he's a risk taker.
I'd like to be remembered as an innovator. I think it was General MacArthur said, "You're remembered for the rules you break." And I've broken some rules to make this. I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me. The carbon fiber and titanium. There's a rule you don't do that. Well, I did. It's picked. I'd like.
Oh, I'm sorry. Play one more time, Albert. I don't know why I cut off so early.
Oh, it was only a 17-second clip, this one.
He says the carbon fiber is one of the things they tell you not to do. Build the whole lot of carbon fiber. I did it, right? So he's lost his life now. That's Stockton Rush. Now let's hear from, is it Bob Ballard next? Oh, no, it's the friend of the explorers. Right? This is just minutes after the news broke. He was on,
it's the,
I believe, a BBC or Sky News. Here he is, yeah.
A rescue expert, and also, David, you knew two of the men on the submersible, Hamish Harding, and also the pilot, P.H. Nargelet. Well, my thoughts are with you.
Well, thank you.
Because this looks to have been a catastrophic event.
Apparently so. They don't use phrases like debris field unless there's no chance of a recovery of the men alive. A debris field implies a breakup of the submersible, and at that depth, because we know that they lost communications with it at about 3,300 meters. Titanic is just 3,750. So that really sort of indicates what is the worst case scenario, which is a catastrophic failure. Generally, that's an implosion. The only saving grace about that is that it would have been immediate, literally in milliseconds, and the men would have had no idea what was happening. That was my fear on Monday morning.
Was it?
When I got the call at 7 o'clock that Hamish was missing in a submersible, and then they told me where it was, the dive on Titanic. It was the first dive. That's a bad sign. That it was on ascent, that's a bad sign. And where it comes, we're lost. So my worst fears, as of Monday, have now been realized. And the only thing is we've gone through these 4 days of concern and worry and hope and praying that the outcome would be different.
Okay, thank you, Albert. That is, I think that, and then I want to just interrupt for a moment and ask, Kim made a point, I think it was you, Kim, among others who I think have made this point. Now it's been out there, but I remember maybe in a text message you sent me, we've known, apparently, the military knew that there was the sound consistent with the submersible being crushed. And that sound was on Sunday. And that sound was consistent as well with the timetable around which they lost communications with the vessel.
So they heard that implosion, that massive sound. Yeah.
And they told, I believe they told the searchers, some of them, they told, in other words, advised the company as well, but they didn't advise the public. In fact, the only thing the public was hearing was about 36 hours later when we heard, well, there's this knocking sound, the hammer, and then we built the whole scenario about, everybody sleeps while one person knocks against the hull. The reality is, on some level, they knew that these people had perished. It was, and remember the other thing, and this is maybe not as important, but all of these assets were brought to this area. When the reality is, it was likely evident to those who were privy to this information and to the information around the immediate dive that there was no hope for these explorers. Go ahead with the Ballard, please. This is Bob Ballard, who was, he discovered the Titanic. They've been looking for the Titanic wreckage. This is the guy who actually found the Titanic wreckage and has repeatedly made missions to the Titanic wreckage since then.
Well, I didn't make that many dives. I made the first 12 that were ever made on the Titanic. And then I went back with remotely operated vehicles last time in 2004. But yes, it's very tragic what happened. I know the people that passed away. I've known Stockton for 20 years, and I know this was his dream. So my heart goes out to he and his family and the families of all the people who lost loved ones. This tragic event more than likely took place on Sunday when they lost connection with the surface. More than likely, they, as they were experiencing difficulties, began to drop their weights and ascend to the surface. They never made it. So if you're on your way up and you're buoyant and you don't make it, it's a catastrophic implosion. And I don't think people can appreciate the amazing energy involved in the destructive process of an implosion. I've explored the Thresher and the Scorpion, which were two U.S. submarines. In the case of the Scorpion, ended up at a similar depth, and it just takes and literally shreds everything. So it's extremely powerful. And then that's what they'll be doing right now. They're now below the circulation system of the ocean in that area. So they'll do a systematic mapping. Those ROVs can remain. I have one just like it, the one over my shoulder. Hercules is on my ship. In fact, you can see in the image, I'm in my command center. My ship's at sea right now. Unfortunately, we were unable to help because we're in the Pacific Ocean, but it's a very similar technology. And the beauty of these remotely operated vehicles is
Thanks, Bob Ballard. He's the American retired Navy officer who discovered the Titanic wreckage in 1985, I believe the year was. Now, finally, I want you to... I'm sorry, go ahead, Kim. Yeah.
I wonder if that means the way he described an implosion and how it shreds everything. I wonder if that means they won't be able to really find the bodies of the people who died.
Oh, the bodies are destroyed. There's no question about it. Based on everything I've read and multiple interviews, the physics of that destruction is so complete that there is. It first of all takes a millisecond apparently for this whole thing to happen. The mercy of it is it happened in an instant.
Yeah.
That before your nerve passages could even reach levels of panic, you'd be gone. And the pressure at whatever level it happened, so complete that it crushed the hull, would pulverize the bodies. There'd be no, this is what I've been reading. Let's play some James Cameron, if you would, please. Again, Cameron, not just the director of Titanic, but someone who has been intimately involved in the development, engineering, and production of submersibles like this one. Not like this one, though, in terms of composition of materials used, but like this one in terms of the sort of mission they were running. Go ahead.
Speaking of James Cameron, another person closely familiar with the Titanic is the director, James Cameron himself, along with his Oscar-winning movie. Mr. Cameron, I understand you've made a number of dives to the wreckage site, too. Just give us your sense on what you're feeling right now, looking at these images of the shipwreck that you studied so closely, and now hearing that another tragedy has been tied to the same area.
Well, I've been down there many times. I know the wreck site very well, as does my friend Bob Ballard. I've made 33 dives. I actually calculated that I've spent more time on the ship than the captain did back in the day. And of course, as a submersible designer myself, I designed and built a sub to go to the deepest place in the ocean, 3 times deeper than Titanic. So I understand the engineering problems associated with building this type of vehicle and all the safety protocols that you have to go through. And I think that what Bob said, because I was watching, is absolutely critical for people to really get the take-home message from this, from our effort here, is deep submergence diving is a mature art. From the early 60s, where there were a few accidents, nobody was killed in the deep submergence, until now, is more time than between Kitty Hawk and the flight of the first 747. So if we haven't improved over that period of time, we have improved drastically over that period of time. And
stop right there, Albert. I just want to make this point. We're going to continue, but I want to make this point. What he's saying is that this technology is mature. He's saying we know what the power of the ocean at this depth is, and we know what materials have to go into the hull and the production of these submersibles to keep them safe. We know it. And he's making the point that there have been no accidents since 1960 because we know what is supposed to happen here. And you can make communication systems more sophisticated, et cetera. But when it comes to the composition materials, this is an evolving area that is mature. And as a result, that's what he's saying when he says between Kitty Hawk and 747. I think it's a really important point. And so when this dude, Stockton Rush, decided to, in essence, rebelliously try something to save money and to make it less expensive. I mean, he didn't want to kill anybody. He wanted to make a safer innovation to this known science. He was going against the general accepted science in the area. And the other thing is that, and he'll make the point in a moment here, is that Stockton Rush was going against also certification protocols that would have at least stress tested his new innovation. So he made the innovation, but he wasn't up for having it stress tested. Please continue.
Certification protocols that all other deep submergence vehicles, except this one, that carry passengers, especially paying passengers, all over the world in tropical waters, deep coral reefs, other wreck sites, and so on. The safety record is the gold standard. Absolutely. Not only no fatalities, but no major incidents requiring all of these assets to converge to a site. Of course, that's the nightmare that we've all lived with, since all of us entered this field of deep exploration. We live with it in the back of our minds. But because implosion, as Bob described it, such a violent event, is first and foremost in our minds, the pressure boundary, which is what they call the hull of the sub, that the people go inside, is obviously first and foremost in our minds as engineers. And we spend so much time and energy on that. And we use all the computerized tools available today, finite element analysis. We worked on our sphere for our deep vehicle that went to the Challenger Deep for over 3 years, just in the computer, before we even made the thing. And then, of course, we pressure tested it over and over and over, and so on. So, this is a mature art, and many people in the community were very concerned about this sub, and a number of the top players in the deep submergence engineering community even wrote letters to the company saying that what they were doing was too experimental to carry passengers and that needed to be certified, and so on. So I'm struck by the similarity of the Titanic disaster itself, where the captain was repeatedly warned about ice ahead of his ship, and yet he steamed at full speed into an ice field on a moonless night, and many people died as a result. And for a very similar tragedy where warnings went unheeded to take place at the same exact site, with all the diving that's going on all around the world, I think it's just astonishing. It's really quite surreal. And of course, P.H. Nargeolet, the French legendary submersible dive pilot, a friend of mine. It's a very small community. I've known P.H. for 25 years. For him to have died tragically in this way is almost impossible for me to process.
It is certainly haunting to consider that comparison to the Titanic.
Okay, thank you, Albert. I thought that was a great summary and takedown of what was going on. And it even included this eerie coincidence associated with a captain who's sort of a full speed ahead guy and a CEO who clearly had that same, I'll use the word hubris, which is most certainly cleanly a dang word. It's arrogance, right? And it's a sad fact because I know we are saddened by the loss of these sweet souls. And the 19-year-old who was the son of the guy they were talking about, Kim, we were going back and forth about this because it's so sad. He didn't want to go on this trip. The 19-year-old.
He was terrified. He said he was terrified. He didn't want to go. You know why he went? It was Father's Day on Sunday when they went down. And he did it because he wanted to make his dad happy.
And so that, again, as you reflect on these things, the mature adults and these guys who dedicated their lives to exploration, it seems, even the wealthy ones, the Hamish Hardings, Stockton Rushes, they know what's involved on some level. Death is mentioned, I think, 3 times in the release forms that you have to sign or that you've signed prior. But a 19-year-old with his whole life ahead of him, that's just brutal, man. Really, really brutal. So that's the wrap on that for now.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It'll be revisited perhaps along the way, but it was a false hope, as it turns out, as I was saying before. Kim, your news. And then Friday, Fabulous Florida will be joined by the fabulous producer John Daly, who's no longer with the program, but he does join on Friday. Sometimes you'll see him in the chat too, you know. But Florida curated solely by the master, Albert. Smash the like button, if you would, like a boss.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
And after you smash with your iron rod, stand by. Big Friday Fabulous Florida next. Mark Thompson Show. What was that? Oh, there you go.
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Use Mark Thompson.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Gonna have to close the Marky Mouth. On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards. Let's talk about January 6th for just a moment. Look at the pictures from that day. Well, now special counsel in former President Trump's investigation is getting at least 2 Republican fake electors to testify before a federal grand jury in Washington. Jack Smith gave them limited immunity in order to get evidence in Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. CNN reports the testimony is here after a year of silence on the fake electors' part of the investigation.
This is huge, by the way, because it is something that you didn't hear about. I mean, how can you have actually concocted a scheme with fake electors and somehow we don't hear anything? We prosecuted and sentenced even all of these different protesters and marauders and rioters at the Capitol, and yet we've heard nothing about these fake electors. I mean, that was a real mature scheme to overthrow an election. It's insanity that we haven't heard anything about it, and now we do hear something about it. It's worth a mention to Avila-Shure, too. Please remind me. But it's good to hear that they are pursuing that.
Well, when you hear the story about the fake electors and just how brazen that whole scheme was, it's pretty shocking.
Exactly.
As Mark was talking about the submarine or the submersible, I should say, the hope is dashed and gone. Investigators are now searching for any insight into how a catastrophic implosion killed all 5 passengers aboard the Titan submersible. Officials have yet to conclusively determine whether this devastating implosion happened right at the moment the submersible stopped communicating, about an hour and 45 minutes into its dive. The Coast Guard did confirm yesterday that a debris field had been found at the sea floor not far from the wreckage of the Titanic, where that deep sea vessel was headed to explore. The Supreme Court has yet to release a pair of major decisions for this term. Among them, the High Court did not hand down rulings on cases involving affirmative action and President Biden's student loan relief plan. The Supreme Court is expected to announce more decisions on Tuesday morning. Republican presidential candidate Chris Christie is slamming former President Trump over his character. Yes. While speaking at the Faith and Freedom Coalition in Washington, D.C., Christie was booed by the crowd for criticizing Trump. He said the former president is unwilling to take responsibility for his mistakes and his faults, calling it a failure of leadership.
Now, you can see, though, that this is worth, again, a mention to Shure and Avila. The headwinds that Christie finds as he goes up against Trump. I mean, he speaks openly about all of these problems with Trump. I mean, illegalities and, Christie is probably the one who's spoken most frankly about, what an absolute lawless moron Trump is, right? And this is, again, these aren't, I think this is the conclusion of Chris Christie. These aren't my thoughts, although they do kind of match up. But the point is that he's running into insane political headwinds. Look at that. He's booed as he brings those remarks into the public. It's crazy. The cult of Trump doesn't want to hear any criticism of their leader.
Well, he was speaking at the Faith and Freedom Coalition. Isn't that like Trump Central? I don't know.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that's a group that has a transactional relationship with Trump. I mean, there's nothing faith or freedom based about Trump, but he's done for the Christian right what they couldn't do before, which is get these right-wing judges appointed. And that's a transactional payoff that Trump indeed delivered. So I think that's what they're, but you're right. I mean, that is they're in his corner as a result of it, but it's transactional. It's not because of any sort of philosophical lineup.
Well, former President Trump is turning over tapes of his interviews with authors and the media to the special counsel investigating him, CNN, reporting the interviews are about his relationship with Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley. Special counsel Jack Smith investigating Trump on 2 cases, one about his mishandling of classified documents, and again, the other, his role in the January 6th riot. Sources reportedly say these tapes are not as shattering as audio tapes that were included in Trump's classified documents indictment. It turns out young people led the whole exodus of San Francisco. According to newly released U.S. Census data, the city's biggest population losses from 2020 to 2022 came from residents in their late 20s and early 30s. The number of people aged 25 to 29 living in the city dropped by 21%. The next largest decline was in the 30 to 34-year-old category, decreasing by 16%. Meanwhile, the fastest growing age group in San Francisco, 75 to 79-year-olds at 15%. The
Wow.
Chronicle says high housing costs and more remote work opportunities played a big role in driving young people out of the city. Yeah. People in Canada will not be able to share content on Meta, on Facebook and Instagram anymore after a law was passed requiring the platforms to pay news outlets to share stories. Meta announced Thursday it would follow through with plans to block the platform, saying content from all news outlets will no longer be available to those using the platforms in Canada. And of course, California is also considering similar legislation. Nothing yet here, but Canada taking big steps when it comes to Meta. And yeah, the 5 former Memphis police officers charged with second-degree murder related to the death of Tyree Nichols appeared in court on Friday. Nichols died 3 days after allegedly being beaten by the officers during a traffic stop back in January. A Friday status hearing lasted less than 10 minutes. 2 of the defendants asked for separate trials, but decisions regarding those requests, no decisions regarding those requests have been made. The next court date coming for August. And lastly, Maury Povich is releasing an at-home paternity test. What?
What?
Yeah, well, you know how one does. Maury Povich is coming out with his own at-home paternity test.
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah.
The daytime TV host became famous for announcing the results of paternity tests on his show,
Right.
and for his iconic catchphrase, "You are not the father." Well,
no.
All right.
now,
Wow.
Povich is selling DNA paternity tests called The Results Are In, which includes instructions on how to take a DNA sample and send it to the lab. His company is promising results in 2 to 3 business days with an
Wow.
accuracy rate of over 99%.
Man.
Big shout out.
Yeah.
It's all confidential.
I want, yeah, our paternity test to be called Big Shout Out. The last chapter then of it's Maury Povich of his
Maury Povich,
journalistic life, having sold his soul to the devil for a few decades, is one last sale. There's still a part of my soul I can still sell.
You are not the father. Mhm.
Oh, that's just great.
The test, if you're so interested, is called The Results Are In. So just Google that and you'll find, everything you need to find.
I grew up reading his dad, Maury Povich's dad's sports column, which is called, which is Shirley Povich was his dad, and his dad was just a brilliant sports writer in the Washington Post, and I grew up reading his column. It's so wild. I always thought Maury Povich was, and he, as I say, he was a journalist, and then he kind of made the move. All right, now Tenuta wine. Tell me about it.
Yes, many choices. You can see kind of by this flight of wine tasting flight that you have A lot of options at Tenuta Vineyards. 28 varietals on their tasting room menu.
What?
They have 14 whites, wonderful for summer. They have 14 reds, and you get discounts on case purchases. But if you are an exclusive Mark Thompson listener, which of course you are, you get 10% off of everything too.
Yeah, you do.
Off.
Yeah,
All you
you
have
do.
to do is give them the old smash it with an
Smash
iron
it
rod.
with your iron rod.
You call Rich and you call him at the 925-699-4576 and you say smash it with your iron rod and you get the exclusive Mark Thompson 10% off special deal at Tenuta, Tenuta Winery in Livermore, and check out their website, tenutawinery.com. You'll see the most beautiful scenery and footage. It'll make you want to go out there and do a tasting in person and walk around the property.
Yeah, I want a flight. I want a tasting flight at Tenuta. That's what I want.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm Kim McAllister, and this is the Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
News break, Kim. Would you be cool with that? And then I want to bring Belinda on.
Yes, we can do that, but you're going to have to close the mouth, Marky Mouth.
Wow. And people give me a hard time about the way I talk to you. Just unreal. You can get away with saying whatever you want. Treating me however you want to. And when I say one thing, just good-naturedly, I get the, how come you're giving Kim a hard time? Oh my God, Kim, you are so rude to her.
Gonna have to close the mouth, Marky Mouth. Gonna have to close the mouth, Marky Mouth.
That's not fake. That's real.
The Mark Thompson Show.
We are back, and it is Friday, and I will tell you, on Fridays, we look forward to it. How about a little something for John Daly?
Hey.
He made it over the wall, Albert. He made it out of radio broadcasting, got back into high tech and real job, and welcome. But he joins us on Friday. We appreciate you still.
Well, I would say I was flushed out of the radio industry.
Well, hey, is John a little hot? What do you think, Albert? Is he okay? I'm counting on you to bring the levels in. Okay,
Albert? I'll write his levels here.
You'll write his levels.
Yeah,
all right. Okay, John. Any thoughts on anything before we begin? It's always good to see you.
I was debating whether or not to bring up the Marky Mouth thing. Because I've been thinking about it for about 24 hours, and I thought, no, just let it go. It'll upset Mark. But thankfully, you don't have to worry about that now. So I can say, it's an honor to be on with Marky Mouth and the Funky Bunch.
Yes, I was surprised at the. Sometimes, in a weak moment, people reveal how they actually feel. And I
have a dilemma. It's like, do I back up Kim, or do I pile on?
Oh, I see.
It's a crossroads.
You can't hurt me more than I've already been hurt by Kim.
Although the one fascinating thing is the show runs later now without commercials. I find that fascinating.
There is truth to that. All right, let's do it. We like to, on Fridays, focus on the state that never disappoints. Sometimes it's the serious. Sometimes it's the intense. Sometimes it's the weird. Many times it's the drug-addled. This is Friday Fabulous Florida.
It's time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
A look at the weirdest stories from our weirdest state.
And it's funny that no one thought to put the.
No, so we do have the baked-in video with the picture.
Oh,
now,
wait,
so.
that's you. So it has to be run together. You're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do you want to do it? Because you have to break this out as a separate video. Can we? It's okay. Can't we just
take two?
Break? Oh, you want to do take two? Is that what you want to do, Albert?
No, I think we can still make that work.
Okay,
I'll just end it with the video. We'll button it out.
We have processes.
We do.
Casey Kasem will worry about those pictures later. Okay?
They do it. They do it to him all the time.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know
have
what
to
the hell
do it.
they do
Where
it for.
are those pictures?
And I also want to know what happened to the pictures I was supposed to see this week. Is Don on the phone?
Anyway, all right. Can we get started with Florida, please? We have a sweet one. Thank you, Albert. Nearly naked Florida man arrested after multiple hit-and-run crashes. Steven Peterson has packed a lot of living into his 22 years. Peterson was wearing only socks and a small covering wrapped around his waist. Was arrested after multiple hit-and-run crashes, according to sheriff's officers.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
The Flagler County Sheriff's Office said an SUV was speeding on Old Kings Road. When it struck multiple cars, continued down the road, a Florida Fish and Wildlife officer tried to pull over the driver. And Steven Peterson, the 22-year-old of Port Orange, didn't stop the car. He had a mission. He had more cars to crash into. He drove the SUV onto Old Kings Elementary School's property, drove around the running track before getting back into the Old Kings Road flow of traffic, if you will. And then he drove into the Flagler County landfill.
What?
And into a wooded area between the landfill and Interstate 95. That was where they were going to put in the new Whole Foods.
That's true.
Deputies went up to the car, told Peterson and his passengers to get out of the vehicle multiple times. Yeah, they had to tell him this, and before having to remove them from the SUV. Remove this guy who didn't have, again, any clothing on, really.
Put up your pants, my man.
Yeah.
Pull up those pants.
Not only did this man endanger lives, but
well, he's
he
still
also
decent,
endangered
right?
his passenger.
He's still
What's
decent.
that?
He's still decent.
You can see the picture if you're watching on YouTube of Peterson. By the way, he looks good.
He's in good shape. I'm getting like meth Jesus off him.
I think that's right. I think that his low body fat may be owing to things other than a workout regimen. But I'm glad.
Is that a Hawaiian shirt he's got wrapped around his boy parts there?
You want to go in for a closer look?
I'm sure there's video of this, and I wouldn't want to explore the video, but it looks like they were just grabbing whatever they could have to cover this guy up.
Yeah. We had multiple reports of shall we say, problems with drivers and arrests involving those with their pants down. Yeah, I don't know why. Albert has done a nice job of curating this. This is Palm Coast, Florida. A wanted Florida man arrested with his pants down.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
After allegedly shoplifting from Target. David Romero is his name. Already had a warrant out for his arrest in Putnam County on third-degree grand theft charges, so he likes to steal stuff. Taken into custody in Palm Coast as he was about to drive out of the Target parking lot. Here it is. We have the video posted now. Albert is running it. You can see a scary scene. The 46-year-old man made his way from his truck to a sheriff's office patrol car. His pants continued to fall down.
Put up your pants, my man.
Yeah.
Pull up those pants.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about the scene?
It's a...
What can you tell us about the scene?
He's got his pants down, Larry, and they keep slipping down, and they keep telling him to pull them up, and they keep slipping down.
Pull up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Yeah. Surveillance video from inside the Target showed Romero allegedly stuffing several items into tan shapewear. It was colored so it looked like it was his, you get it, his body colored.
Yeah.
The man also grabbed a few grocery items, which were reportedly the only items he paid for before walking out of the store. Sadly, in San Francisco, he could have walked right out. But in Florida, different scene.
Well, especially without clothes, like all these stories. This is just a Tuesday in San Francisco.
What can you tell us about the scene?
It's a different scene in San Francisco, Larry. A Florida man plows through Seffner gas station, striking a man who miraculously, though, even though he was struck by this vehicle, is expected to survive. Yeah, that's right. A Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, different Hillsborough, everyone. The Hillsborough in San Francisco, slightly different vibe than the one in Florida. No accident, he says, when a man from Floral City plowed through a Seffner gas station early in the morning. Deputies arrested Anthony Kaddish, 37. They say he was speeding when he slammed his Kia Forte into the front doors of the travel centers of America.
Oh, no.
Located there on Tampa Gateway Boulevard in Seffner. You know where that is, John?
Yeah, I do.
According to witnesses, a man was entering the store at the time of the crash and was hit by this speeding vehicle, pinned him between the driver's side door of the vehicle and a metal structure.
What?
Security video shows the Kia crashing into the gas station, making its way through the store before coming to a complete stop, shocking the clerks and the staff. Deputies say that the man who was pinned, the victim, aided at the scene, but then taken to Tampa General Hospital and is expected to survive this drama.
Are you willing to bet your lunch?
I think there might have been some
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
Seems like there might be.
Middle of the night.
Yeah. A Florida man, though, is lucky to be alive after swallowing, if you guessed cocaine, give yourself a few points. Swallowed cocaine during a traffic stop. Leslie Brock is the gentleman's name. He was arrested after he swallowed cocaine inside a baggie during a traffic stop. Wow.
Cocaine is pretty bougie for Florida.
I'm going to say that's a baller move to swallow the bag like that. I mean, I don't know. He had apparently this is how they noticed that the cops noticed an empty baggie on his shorts, and there was like white powder everywhere. It was it was very what was the Scarface? The whole thing was very Scarface.
Calling me a liar? Is that what you calling me?
Brock was removed from his car after he refused a deputy's commands to exit, and then spit out a white substance that later tested positive for cocaine. I think the spitting, the cocaine, he said the footage shows a deputy swabbing the spit at the scene. And, man, I'll tell you.
What can you tell us about the scene?
I'm swabbing the spit at the scene, Larry. That's
what can you tell us about the scene?
You got white spit, the deputy asked Brock before showing him that the swab had turned blue, positive for cocaine. It's in your spit, the deputy said. I guess
you spend enough time in Florida. It's kind of like in your system. Right?
It's in the water there. It's just it's everywhere. Yeah. A Florida teen is taking kind of a different view of an alligator attack. He calls 911, reporting that he's been attacked by an alligator. In the heat of the moment, though, to the 911 call, he brushes it off. He says, calmly telling dispatchers, "I'm good. I just got bit by a gator." Gabriel Kilmus, 13 years old, made the call. Here it is. Albert has it for you now.
Yes. Yeah, I can walk. I just got bit by a gator.
Okay. Where were you bit by a gator?
At a creek, a little Howell Creek trestle.
Okay. And what part of your body was bit?
Like my right hip. I'm okay though. I can walk and I can stand. I'm fine. It just stings a little bit, but I'm good.
It stings.
Wow.
This is not her first gator call. She's like, yeah, where were you bit?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Now serving number 23.
Everybody was super cool on that call. That was wild. Just another day in Florida. Man. A Florida deputy and motorist survived being swept through a storm drain during a huge rainstorm. They get those flash floods and massive storms there. The sheriff, deputy, and motorist are lucky to be alive. They were sucked into a flooded storm drain during a torrential downpour and dragged underwater for about 30 seconds before emerging soaked but unharmed on the other side of the highway.
That's not fake. That's real.
Yeah. William Hollingsworth, the deputy, helping stranded drivers during the rapidly rising water. When he saw the motorist disappear under the surface, he rushed to the aid of the motorist without regard for his own safety. That's the kind of sacrifice we need more of. The pair traveled nearly 100 feet under 4 lanes of highway. The episode was recorded by the deputy's body camera. Although the underwater portion of the video is completely dark, filled only with muffled sounds of rushing water, the two did survive and emerged on the other side. The sheriff saying, "Buddy, I got you." "Oh, Jesus," they said. And the motorist says, "Wow, I almost died." Nice job by the sheriff and by the motorist. And a giant African snail. It's an infestation. Were it only one, it would be a sign of a problem. But there are a lot of them. And they have infested a community and forced that community to quarantine. A huge invasive pest, these giant South African snails that have gotten into South Florida. They can eat their way through stucco, through street signs, through tires. They can puncture tires. They can even cause meningitis.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, they're actually quite lovely, Kim, even though, I mean, again, as a human being, you don't perhaps see the loveliness because they look so,
It's the size of her entire hand.
Yeah, it's a very large snail. And that's why they call them giant African snails.
Right now it's mating season and they're hungry.
The Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services announcing on Tuesday that a swath of Broward County is going to be placed under quarantine because of these big, beautiful snails that Kim has remarked upon. The department will spray a pesticide that it says is safe for crops, but it'll make the invasive giant African land snails susceptible to dehydration. That is the enemy of snails. So there's that. A Florida man known as Pooh Bear is arrested after the chess game he was playing turns deadly.
Oh.
Is this at Disney World?
What?
Pooh Bear?
The Haines City Police Department is crediting that community for helping arrest a murder suspect. They say the 22-year-old Christavian Harris, who goes by Pooh Bear, is facing murder charges for his involvement in a fatal shooting that occurred after his chess game. According to the Haines City Police Department, he walked up to a Winter Haven home on the 1000th block of Avenue N. It happened in the afternoon. A group of men were playing chess, or maybe it wasn't his chess game at all. Police say witnesses told them that Harris began arguing with a 24-year-old and then shot him multiple times. So I don't know that they were arguing over chess. It happened during a chess game. Unclear if the argument and the shooting was chess-related. If it was, it might be the first chess-related shooting and argument. No, not argument, but shooting, I would think, ever reported. A 46-year-old bystander also injured in this shooting. Police say both victims were taken to area hospitals. And despite life-saving measures that were taken, Swift did die from his injuries. Yeah, the second victim underwent surgery for his injuries. Police have not released his condition. Harris has been charged with second-degree murder, aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, and using or displaying a firearm during the commission of a felony. Wow. That's ugly.
I don't know if you want that nickname when you're in the yard. That's not very hardcore.
That's true. When you're going to prison, you may want to find something besides Pooh Bear, unless it's ironic. If it's ironic, then it works.
Hey,
it's
Pooh
like
Bear, you're sleeping with me tonight.
Yeah, it's like when they call him, Fat Anthony, but he's not really fat. He's really skinny. That's the whole idea. A Florida man is arrested for allegedly driving 100 miles an hour. He told deputies he was, if you guess, no, not drunk. No, not high. Late for work is the answer we were looking for. Yeah. James Lloyd arrested and booked on a reckless driving charge. Clock speeding down.
It's a wild idea, but it just might work.
It might work. US 27 in the Dundee Winter Haven area of Florida. The 22-year-old was driving a 2015 Ford Mustang, supposedly weaving in through traffic. An unmarked deputy clocked him going well over the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit, pulled him over. Said he was late for work. Apologized for speeding. Cop said, you're under arrest. And that, my friends, is the finish to a wild run that had murder, had gators, had ripoffs, had lawlessness in the form of car crashes through convenience stores. We must nudity, big time nudity, of 2 stories with pants down around guys' ankles.
Pull up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
We must choose a favorite. We don't want to. It's like choosing between children. We love them all. But here they are again to remind you. And you choose your favorite in the chat. And there's also a poll up in YouTube. And you can vote on YouTube now. And if you're watching in replay, which many of you are, please indicate your favorite. We're always curious, and we do go back and look. You can put it in the comments section. The nearly naked Florida man arrested after multiple hit-and-run crashes. Remember, he went around the elementary school. He crashed into many cars. They tried to get him out. Ultimately, they had to pull him out of the car, nearly naked, because he did have that little, as Kim was remarking on, that little kind of, it was kind of a...
sarong?
Yes, thank you. Sarong. It was, and everything was wrong with the sarong, is the reality of that.
Pull up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Caught with his pants down is the other Florida man arrested in that Target parking lot for shoplifting. The Florida man then who blows through a gas station in his Kia. The man who he hit inside the gas station, in the convenience store kind of part of the gas station, expected to survive despite being pinned up against a metal structure. Florida man lucky to be alive after swallowing cocaine during the traffic stop. The Florida teen who called 911 after a gator attack but seemed kind of nonplussed by the whole thing said, "I'm good. Just want to let you know." The Florida man arrested... the Florida man surviving now, along with the deputy, after being swept through the storm drain during a huge rainstorm. The giant African snail infestation forces a Florida community to quarantine. The Florida man known as Pooh Bear arrested after he shoots up a chess game. And finally, the Florida man allegedly driving 100 miles an hour because he was late for work. We must pick a favorite. I will start with you, visiting fabulous producer John Daly.
I really connect with the low-key alligator report. Yeah. I like it. I like his style.
You like the laid-back 911 call? All right. How about
That's
you,
how the
Kim?
Kids do.
Yeah, the kids are... not much gets a rise out of them.
I had a hard time not choosing Pooh Bear and the chess game, but I feel compelled to go with John Daly on the Gator story.
Going laid-back Gator. All right. Albert, what about you?
Gonna have to close the Marky Mouth.
Okay, what about you, Albert? What is your favorite?
The Gator story is good, and it is the most popular in the vote right now. It has over 50% of the vote. But I do like, because usually the convenience store type of story, the man crashes into it, and the man gets pinned. It usually doesn't end well, and I never put it in Florida because it's just dark and grim.
I see.
But since it did have a happy ending and it did add to my my content here, I was really happy that he survived. So I'm going with that.
Yeah, all right. Oh, that'll work. I always like the...
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Dead heat for me on the pantsless Floridians. So that is Friday Fabulous Florida for today.
This has been Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
Y'all come back now here.
Daly, I yield to no man in my love for John Daly. Thank you, John. We'll see you next Friday, maybe.
And remember, God save the king.
John, just a recent return from Great Britain, from the mother country. Kim, sadly, we must go to a substantive conversation around politics, and we cannot have the substantive conversation around news that we normally do at this time. It's oftentimes the case on Fridays that we have to skip over a newscast.
Gonna have to close the Marky Mouth.
I'm going to close the Marky Mouth, except to welcome our experts on board here in a moment. Please smash the like button like a boss, if you would.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Give us a thumbs up. Thank you if you haven't subscribed and shared the show. We'd appreciate it if you would do that. I mean, this is how we grow the show. Share it on Facebook. Share it with your pals. If you don't have any pals, make some pals and share it that way as we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
How about it? It's been one of those weeks, a lot going on, and two guys who are so kind to come in and offer their thoughts on any number of things related to American politics. He was the senior correspondent at ABC News, longtime White House correspondent. How about it for Jim Avila, everybody? Hey, Jim Avila.
Good morning. And
a guy who's forgotten more about politics than most of us will ever know. You can find him on TYT, among other places. He is Michael Shore. Michael Shore, nice to see you, sir. Hey, I wonder if you could just we can get to kind of the Chris Christie throwing the heat on Trump in a moment. I'm curious how you're seeing the Hunter Biden thing get digested in the world of politics this week. We'll start with you, Michael Shore, please. Can you give us a sense of how you see that reverberating?
I think what certainly what Republicans are good at in this day and age is throwing something out there and seeing if it sticks. Well, there wasn't when the plea deal was announced. It made great hay among Republicans and the people that they follow, but it didn't really spread. People did not think that this was the kind of deal that was going to take down the White House, which is what Republicans were hoping for, that was going to be an indictment in some way of the Attorney General Merrick Garland. In fact, Garland had nothing to do with it, so he says, and the Trump-appointed special counselor did, or FBI employee did, and so they went with that. And I think by going with that and continuing with that, there was really no way for Republicans to do very much about changing the mindset about Hunter Biden. Even yesterday, Hunter Biden showed up at the White House for the state dinner with Prime Minister Modi of India, and people on the Republican side were complaining that how can he have this, admitted felon and tax cheat at his house? It's his son. So it didn't work out well. It's a story that I think is going to go away. That part of it, the Hunter Biden part of discussions and oversight, is not going to go away.
Jim?
Yeah, I think the Republicans did themselves a disservice. They've built up this Hunter Biden expectations for years now that he was this terrible person, which he probably is, not a great person. At least he had some problems, and hopefully he's recovered from that. But they built it up so much that when it came out, and every line, every story started with a Trump appointee in talking about the prosecutor involved. So there was no way they could charge that this was bias, or that they did claim that he was treated differently, but the facts show that for those charges, he was not treated differently. That most people who cheat on their taxes don't go to jail, especially if they pay the taxes back, which Hunter Biden did. And most tax cheats don't get charged at all. I mean, all those corporate people who don't pay their taxes, they're not charged. So that was not an issue, a big issue among the public about a guy cheating on his taxes. And it doesn't really change the way the general public looks at Hunter Biden, which is that he's a troubled soul. He's a person who's got a problem, but he's not an elected official. His father is the president, and his father is doing what, Michael and I are fathers. They're doing what any father would do. You stand by your son. You condemn the act, not the person. And I think that's what Joe Biden was doing. And I think that shields him from the issues involved. Now the Republicans have brought up this new guy, this IRS agent, has been in the news these last couple of days, who has told the committee there, the oversight committee, that Hunter Biden was not given equal treatment in this investigation, and that there was interference from up above. Now, there is no evidence of that. It's just this guy who has come up and said that. He claims that Durham was getting information was getting instruction from the Department of Justice and from the Biden White House, but he provides no evidence of that. So I think that'll go away as well. We'll see.
And counter to or along with what Jim is saying, and counter to what Republicans are saying, Andrew Weissman, who worked at at the Justice Department, where he was a U.S. attorney, a deputy U.S. attorney, came out and said that Hunter Biden got actually more harsh treatment than the average American would have gotten for what these, for what these infractions were on taxes and on the gun charge, which never ever gets brought up on charges, and that's something that he settled on as well.
Yeah, and we ought to just mention what the gun charge is, because he was had admitted using drugs, and he lied on a form. In the gun form, it says, "Are you a drug user?" And he said no. So he lied on the form. He didn't go out and use a gun in some kind of crime, or have a gun in his possession that was stolen by somebody who used it in a crime. That really is. All these Republicans who claim that the Trump indictments are over a paperwork issue. Certainly, this really was a paperwork issue.
Yeah. This is sort of on the level of a seatbelt infraction when they pulled you over for something more serious. But when you say on gun charges, it does. Jim, you make a key distinction, because it does sort of connote that there was some sort of, what was he involved in, a holdup, or what was the was there a shootout, or et cetera.
And when they bring people up on that charge, by the way, I know we have other places to go. That's there as a protection so that they can bring people up on racist and white supremacist and nationalist charges. They look for other things to bring them in on, because being a racist is a vague thing to nail someone for.
I see. That's interesting. I was, Kim had in her news the fact that the fake electors for the first time are a few of them are being deposed, and they are making deals for limited immunity in some of these cases. It strikes me as, I was saying this last hour, as significant, because I've always felt, why aren't we hearing more about the fake electors? I mean, that's a huge brew that was being cooked up to really overturn the election. I understand that the violent rioters, I mean, that's if you'll pardon the use of this word, sexy story, in the sense that it was, there was blood and there was screaming and there were people who lost their lives as a result. But the fake electors were also part of this scheme. Finally, we're getting to this. I wonder if you could just give me your sense of where you think those investigations might ultimately end up, and how they'll be, again, digested in the body politic. Jim?
Well, I think it's bad news for Rudy Giuliani and John Eastman, the people who cooked up the scheme. They may charge some of these fake electors, but I kind of think those are witnesses rather than targets, and that they'll be used to go after the people who were in that in the hotel room across the street from the White House, plotting what to do to try to overturn the election, using false electors, and trying to get Mike Pence to invalidate the true electors. So I think that's going to be where those investigations go. They may land up threatening these people with charges, or charging them if they don't cooperate. But I see them more as witnesses than as targets.
And I've maintained from the beginning that while the order of things has been that Alvin Bragg did his work in New York, and Florida has happened now with the documents, that the biggest case here, in my estimation, is going to be Donald Trump on January 6th. And I think that's the one where he's got to be shaking the most. I also think Florida and Fulton County is big, and it will come sooner than January 6th, I would guess. But these are the little pieces that we get now, these kind of nuggets that come out, where we see where it is headed on the January 6th stuff. And I think it's going to be very, very difficult for Donald Trump. And it's why I think you see so many people getting into this presidential race as well.
The reality, guys, is that Donald Trump is never going to do time, or it seems, even when pressed, that Democrats, I'm talking about Biden, I think, would you pardon Donald Trump? It seems as though the institution of justice doesn't really have in it the allowance for a president so lawless. You could even argue seditionist, trying to, overturn this election through every means, doesn't have in it the kind of rigorous curb your dog mentality that would bring a real conviction without a pardon to a president. The more I hear, and I'm just curious, I mean, that's kind of a broad description of what I'm hearing from Democrats and Republicans. You look for little hints. It's that nobody really wants to see this guy actually. He certainly won't do time, Jim Avila. You would agree with that. I mean, regardless. And B, I don't know that convictions will really. I'll put it this way: there won't be trials. There might be some kind of a plea deal reached. What do you think of that? I know I've said a lot, but go ahead.
Well, look, I think that the American public is reluctant to put an ex-president in prison. I think overall. But if the charges keep coming, especially on the charges we have so far, on the classified documents, I mean, he could have given those back and not have this problem at all. So what needs to be done is some kind of precedent set, some kind of hand slapping, making sure that he can't run for president. I think that's the number one priority of most Americans, is this man cannot run for president, cannot be president. If there's some kind of plea deal, that's got to be included. Do I think that? I think the January 6th stuff, if it comes out that they have good, solid evidence that Donald Trump tried to overturn the election by force, I think that that's possible that he'll go to prison for that. So I think we still have to wait on that charge. I don't think he'll go to prison on the New York stuff, and I don't think he'll go to prison on even on the Georgia stuff. I think he'll get some kind of plea deal or probation. It is quote unquote a first offense for him on these. So, and it's a white collar crime. And the history of America is that white collar criminals who have a lot of money don't go to jail. So I don't think the only one that I think he's in jeopardy going to jail is January 6th.
Yeah, and also white collar crime, insurrection to violence isn't a typical white collar crime. You also have to realize that it's not black and white. It's not jail or pardon. Like he could be someone who struck a deal who is never pardoned, and part of the deal is that he would never be pardoned. I mean, there are all sorts of ways that they could get to what a deal would look like. And then you have to realize that people making these decisions are politicians, and they don't, first of all, they're Democrats who wouldn't mind Donald Trump winning the nomination for the Republicans and running again because they think he's eminently beatable. There are also Democrats who don't want to deal with the back and forth over having jailed a president and having that take them down politically. If in fact that's the way it goes. So there are a lot of calculations to come in. I think there is an example in what Gerald Ford did by pardoning Richard Nixon at a time where our attention wasn't 24/7, but it was as 24/7 as it had ever been with Watergate. There wasn't social media. There wasn't the opinions of the people and the anonymous people being shared constantly. The only anonymous person at that time was Deep Throat, and we didn't find out about for decades later. So I do think that there's the political calculations are unavoidable and smart. Ford lost. It was a profile in courage, according to the Kennedy Center in Massachusetts, that gave him a profile in courage award because he lost knowing that by pardoning Nixon, he probably would lose. And that you don't see politicians do that anymore.
No, it's interesting. Yeah, that's I saw in the chat something about Teixeira, about Jack Teixeira. He's the guy who leaked that stuff sort of into the, there it is from Wes. Why does no one compare Trump's handling of documents with Jack Teixeira handling of documents?
Well, there's a big difference.
Yeah, go ahead.
The big difference is that so far, there's no evidence that Donald Trump was distributing these documents to others. We have the waiving of the document, but even then, and he says, that I can't show this to you. So that's the big difference. Teixeira was, in fact, distributing them on a website where everybody could see them, especially his friends who were the gambling friends, the gaming friends. So I think that's the big difference. Now, we could see evidence still. We don't know yet. If it's proven that Donald Trump was distributing them in some way, showing them off, or selling them or using them for blackmail, whatever, but there's no evidence that he's done that yet in the indictment, which is a pretty thorough indictment. So that's the big reason.
It's also, I think it's hard to find that trail of breadcrumbs from those documents to sharing them. I mean, that tape where you actually hear him saying, I've got in my hand, classified document or whatever, and it may or may not have been something that was classified. I said that at the time. I said, everybody's assuming this is a classified document with that actually pertained to what he said it was. But I mean, it could just as easily, if it's Trump, have been, just the menu at Mar-a-Lago, and he's just talking about it.
That's true.
But your point is a good one, and I just think it's very hard to find that trail. For example, to the Saudis or to some Middle Eastern power or to the Russians or whomever. So you look at the deals after the fact, and that's why many are drawing that linkage, Michael, between the deal that Kushner made, the new deal that has now come out with the Omanis and the Saudis between Trump and those parties, that would suggest, boy, this is an extraordinary deal that was made after your presidency, and I'm wondering what other stuff changed hands is what you're often hearing.
Yeah, and there will always be that suspicion, even if none of it's ever proven, and we don't know everything yet, but we it's more about the risk that it posed having those documents there and the types of people that he deals with than actually a smoking gun about who he shared them with. And it was bad enough for these prosecutors that he had them, that he wouldn't give them back, and that they were left unprotected. So again, there's a chance that these people could have been making deals with the Omanis regardless of where those documents were. I don't think they're going to be able to point a finger necessarily to that, but there's a lot we still don't know.
Mackay says, you think January 6th was bad. If Trump is ordered to prison, all hell will break loose. I don't know about that, but Mackay, I'm wondering, I thought, you always heard that, once they indict him in New York, all hell's going to break loose. Once they indict him in Florida, that's his state, all hell's going to break loose. I think I don't know. I mean,
there's a big
thoughts?
jump. There's a big jump, Mark, from indicting and putting a former president who has all of these adherents around the country and, frankly, around the world in jail. So I don't think we can just dismiss what Mackay is saying. I think that it will be a long time before Donald Trump goes to jail anyway. And at that point, his relevance may be a little more muted than it is now.
I see. Yeah, that and it's true. We've just spent time talking about all the reasons that he probably wouldn't go to jail necessarily, although Avila pointed out a reasonable scenario by which he would. Before we leave today, I wanted to touch on Modi visiting Biden. It's a big thing, a state dinner for Modi, who was the prime minister of India. And India, this immense country, complex, but one of the key aspects, and it's been really, it hasn't been buried by the press, by the way. They've been pretty good about referencing the fact that there are real issues with the treatment of Muslims in India. And under Modi, he's brutal to political rivals and brutal. I mean, I'm talking about murderous to the Muslim community is what is repeatedly cited. I wonder, especially you, Jim, you cover the White House for so long, so many troubled leaders, meaning troubled by these kinds of controversies, pass through those doors. How is that handled by White House staff, by an administration? I mean, what kind of balancing act has to be done? And speak, please specifically about Modi.
Well, it goes back to, most familiar to me is Henry Kissinger. It's real politics. It's dealing with the world, the hand that you have been given. Most of the world, or much of the world, Saudi Arabia is the biggest example of this, where their human rights record and killing of a journalist and killing of their own people, mass beheadings and things like that. It is not, but do we have to deal with them? We do deal with them. We're dealing with India. The issue in India between Hindus and Muslims is a deep-seated hatred that's been going on for years and years. It divided the country. That's why there's a Pakistan. All the Muslims were sent to Pakistan, and they control that country. The ones who remain in India have a real problem because there is a deep-seated hatred there. So as far as how does the Biden administration handle it, look, you can't ignore. India is a balancing factor for China. India has nuclear weapons. They're huge. They have more population now than China does. They are a democracy. So those are the reasons why we have to deal with them. And while I'm sure, and Biden says that he did call him out or did talk about human rights in their discussions, you can't just, it's difficult to turn your back on them. If you want to be an absolutist, then you do. But then you have to be absolute about every other country that we deal with.
Yeah, and that you can't pick the leaders of other nations, as Donald Rumsfeld. So you can't pick your own army and the leaders of other nations. You have to deal with the people that are brought to you. You know, Modi hasn't had a press conference in India in 9 years, and so he's not asked about this very often. And he had this press conference of what they call it a bilat, two leaders in the White House, and he got a couple of questions. About human rights. One question, I think, from the Wall Street Journal about human rights, but they're not hammering him on that, and they're trying to, you know, I think that a lot of the motivation here with Modi is to make sure that they don't become like a second China, and I think that's where the outlook from this White House is on the Modi visit, much more so to the chagrin of many than it is on human rights. But bringing those up at certain times is still important for a president.
Guys, so grateful that you give us some time on Fridays. Thank you. You can follow, Jim's got a weekly column now in Barrett Media. You can follow his Twitter feed, and he usually posts it there.
And if you don't, you follow mine, and I post Jim's.
Oh, yeah. We all repost Jim's. It's really good insights into politics and media, you know, which is, so that involves messaging and, you know, what's out there. The zeitgeist, I think, sadly, honestly, because media is sort of broken, is determined by a lot of media messaging. So it's right for this moment in our history, Jim's column. So, and give us it's ABC. What is your
Jim Avila ABC.
Jim Avila ABC. And Michael Shore, you can find him on TYT. You can also find him here often. Love you guys and appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Thank you. Jim Avila, Michael Shore. Yeah. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Let me put my credibility glasses on for a moment to see where we are. I believe we're right on time, which is shocking.
What?
I know. I'm surprised by it also. So Kim's news, and then the marvelous culture blaster, Michael Snyder. He will stop through with reviews of some pretty major releases. In fact, I'm just looking here, Albert. I believe Asteroid City, No Hard Feelings, Extraction 2. Did you see Extraction 1? Albert, feels like a kind of movie that you might have seen.
No, I'm not really a movie guy, Mark. I just
is that right? You're not in the
put the
Extraction,
game on, and that's how I enjoy my night. Yeah,
I see. Okay, well, by the way, I just want to ask you, because we have
Albert, thank you.
Stopped down here for a moment, and although I don't mean to hold up Kim's news,
gonna have to close the Marky Mouth.
I'll close the Marky Mouth in a moment, but I do want to say a big trade for the Warriors, right?
Yeah, so we unloaded probably the most unpopular Warriors player. We traded him, Jordan Poole. He was he showed a lot of promise a couple seasons ago. Could score the basket, score the ball, and we traded him for probably the most hated opponent of the Warriors, Chris Paul. So it's like, at what cost to lose Jordan Poole? But I think overall it's a good trade. We unloaded. We gave Jordan Poole probably too much money, so we unloaded that contract, and we only have CP3, which was also a larger contract. He's also up in age, and we do plan on keeping him, which is going to be weird. But I'd rather have Chris Paul for a couple of seasons or one season than Jordan Poole for the rest of that contract.
And the Giants, I'll just say this, and then I will get to Kim's news. The Giants on a tear until they weren't, and when they weren't, it really went sideways.
Yeah, I think the Blake Snell, which is the Padres starter, struck out the Giants lineup I think 11 times. So when a pitcher's hot, you could just blame that, and you could just say, "Hey, the win streak was great," and
although it wasn't really a pitcher's duel, Albert, I don't think.
No, it was a one pitcher dominating.
And then the other
lineup,
team blasting away. It was a one-sided victory. Anyway, that's that. Smash the like button like a boss. Snyder next, the Culture Blaster after Kim's News. Mark Thompson Show.
Hey, which one do you use? Mark Thompson?
Who's Mark Thompson?
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. At least 2 reported Republican fake electors will testify before a federal grand jury in Washington. Special counsel Jack Smith giving them limited immunity to get evidence in Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. CNN reporting today the testimony comes after a year of silence on the fake electors' role in the investigation. GOP hopeful Ron DeSantis is a presidential hopeful, I should say, promising to extinguish the fire of cultural Marxism. That's how he put it. Well, the Florida governor also touting his state's record on the pandemic and on abortion. DeSantis spoke today at the Faith and Freedom Coalition in Washington, D.C. A lot of interesting stuff happens there. The Supreme Court has dismissed a lawsuit brought by Texas over the Biden administration's immigration guidelines, you could say. So the guidelines prioritize the arrest of illegal immigrants who are suspected terrorists or dangerous criminals. In his order, Justice Kavanaugh said the Constitution provides the president the authority to aggressively pursue legal actions against defendants who violate the law. Speaking of the Supreme Court, more than 60% of Americans disapprove of the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade almost 1 year ago. More than half say they are strongly against the Dobbs decision that turned abortion rights back to the states. That, according to an NBC News poll, women, especially younger female voters, were more likely to disapprove than men. Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn. She is concerned about what she's calling the new evil axis. She took to Twitter yesterday. She wrote, Russia, Communist China, North Korea, and Iran are working together to take down the USA. She also wrote, China is set to plant troops and intelligence assets within 100 miles of the Florida coast. So Marsha Blackburn speaking out against the new evil axis. There's a group of makeup thieves calling themselves the Wheatbridge Kardashians. I don't know, maybe a little Kardashian-y. I mean, you can make the argument.
I see it.
Yeah. They're called the Wheatridge Kardashians. They're from Colorado, but they have been captured in California. The Wheatridge Police Department gave the 3 women that nickname last month after they allegedly stole nearly $1,500 worth of makeup from a local Ulta beauty store just outside Denver. The now viral Facebook post invited thieves to connect with the police department, saying a relationship could be moved to the next level through booking photos and fingerprinting.
Wow.
The Wheatridge Kardashians.
Yeah, that makeup deal. It's the makeup thing, it must be big money. I see a lot of the different crime gangs go in and, empty out the makeup section of CVS, the makeup, whatever it is, makeup section at Walgreens. Then they go into the Sephora. It must be big money.
Yeah. Well,
anyway, this crime
Kardashians are under arrest.
This crime crew is done.
This was not well thought out. Fundraiser at a Rhode Island Walmart is stirring up a bit of controversy. You can see why here. The Providence Journal reports a Black employee at a store in town there was placed in a cage asking for bail money. It was all part of a donation drive for the Hasbro Children's Miracle Network. Yeah, maybe not so much. The Lifespan Health System that operates the state's award-winning hospitals has asked Walmart, please don't do anything like this in the future. It's just no bueno. While a corporate spokesperson said the fundraiser was against existing Walmart policies. Not the first time a Walmart has put an employee in a cage to ask for donations. This particular employee with the signs, yeah. And lastly, I will say that, maybe if you saw this in the store, you'd think, oh, that's a cute little toy, baby shark, right? Well, over 1 million baby shark bath toys are being recalled.
No.
Yeah. Yesterday, the Consumer Product Safety Commission announced the Pink Frog brand Baby Shark Sing and Swim bath toys have hard plastic top fins. You can see it right there.
Oh, yeah.
That's not fake. That's real.
No.
Pose a risk of impalement.
Well, it is fake, although the danger is real. Yes. Okay, go ahead. I mean, they're not real fins. Yes.
Again, impalement,
Impalement. Yes.
lacerations, and punctures.
Wow.
The manufacturing
That's not
company has
very good.
received
If you get it
12
in order, you get extra points.
Okay, impalement, lacerations, and puncture.
That's correct.
Thank you. All right.
The manufacturing company has received 12 reports of kids being injured by falling or sitting on the full-size bath toy. There are
Oh, my
about
God.
7.5 million units currently on the market. Newer editions of the toy that feature softer silicone top fins are not being recalled.
My
Yeah,
bad.
the
I'm sorry.
tail and the fin look a little dangerous. What could go wrong here? I don't know.
Oh, my gosh.
If you have the baby shark bath
Is
toy with the
no
hard
place
fin,
safe.
no,
The
no, it isn't.
bathtub is the sanctified, protected area for
No.
most kids. And here they are with their innocent bath toys. And here they are staring down. They're staring death in the face, Michael Snyder. They're staring death in the face.
It might as well just put a real shark in there at
Why are you
bath time,
yelling?
you know?
Yeah. They'd be better off with a real shark, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Robert.
at bath time, yeah.
I'm Kim McAllister.
How dare
and
you
this-
mock this, Albert? This is a serious thing. It's a recall.
This is the Mark Thompson Show.
I come from regular stock.
I just want to find 11,780.
Did you really just do that? ABC knows that I feel like this. I've told them. It had nothing to do with them.
May the Spirit guide you in wisdom and grace.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
It was great. I loved it.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Can you let him finish, sir?
We are so excited. The home stretch on Fridays bring this guy in. If it's music, if it's some weird indie film with subtitles where you need to, go to the internet to figure out the ending, that is Michael. But if it's a comic book in your face, it's DC versus Marvel. He has that stuff too. He's amazing. I don't know how he does it. He writes his column in the Marina Times, the Coastal Commuter. He comes and goes on a rainbow. Come on for Michael Snyder. Come on, Michael Snyder.
Hey, hi, everybody.
You are the culture blaster.
I'm happy
Blast
to
away.
be here. I'm happy. I'm happy here, but I'm a little sad. I'm a little distraught.
Why is that?
Sadly, my shark bath toy ate my rubber ducky.
Wow, that is tough.
Attacked and ate my rubber ducky.
If only you'd known about the recall before you put the two in the same tub.
It was a big mistake. On the other hand, I'm also really happy. I want to announce the publication of my new broadcast horror novel, In the Mouth of Marky. It's going to be big, I promise you.
The Mouth of Marky is a popular...
You're going to have to close the Marky Mouth.
It's Marky Mouth for the actual title.
I want to get serious briefly.
right.
Considering the massive and obvious engineering flaws with Ocean Gate's Titan submersible, the fact that they were deliberately ignored by the CEO of the company, also a passenger on the sub, makes him the front runner for a 2023 Darwin Award. All right. Unfortunately, he'll be unable to attend.
I don't even know if it was Darwin. I think it was, it was hubris, Michael. You, of all people, a writer, sophisticate, you know that in truth is the word that probably best applies here, don't you think?
He won't be able to attend the ceremony, by the way. And I know this seems too soon.
It is too soon, Michael. It really is.
Well, not soon enough for me. I just feel like, it's a tragedy, but
it's your job to somehow find a way to puncture the moment, isn't it? That's who you are. You're a puncturer.
I'm the pin in the balloon, baby.
You are. Okay.
Want to talk movies?
Yeah. Speaking of puncturing the balloon, how about the Giants? It kind of ran into a brick wall.
We got a double dose of sports in the past day or so of upsetting sports news. On one hand, oh my God, a 10-game winning streak. These kids are fantastic. I am loving Luis Matos. He seems like a natural. Casey Schmidt, Patrick Bailey, he's running that pitching staff like an old hand. And yet, they hit a wall yesterday. But 10 games in a row, they are in a great position. People never would have guessed. As a matter of fact, MLB.com just tried to keep ignoring the winning streak. How about these Cincinnati Reds? They just hate us out here on the West Coast.
There's never been anything like this.
I'm excited about them, and I'm thrilled to see that they're in the catbird seat right now. They're ready to make a leap at the Diamondbacks this weekend. Go Giants. Also, kind of strange news from Warriors Central. Jordan Poole, who obviously was one of the sloppiest ball handlers in the history of the Warriors, moved to the Wizards for the hated Chris Paul. This guy was just not, a hero to Warriors fans, not well loved. So maybe this is the first in a series of moves.
It's a new chapter, Michael. It's a new chapter. Get into it.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Smash the new chapter with your iron rod.
I want to get into movies. What
Let's
do you say?
do it. Okay,
all right,
great.
let's launch things with idiosyncratic, highly mannered filmmaker Wes Anderson's new movie.
Idiosyncratic, okay.
Asteroid City, visually dazzling, star-studded 1950s period piece.
Whenever he starts with visually dazzling, you know that the other shoe is about to drop. Like the script doesn't live up to the. Okay,
well, it's
go
set
ahead.
in a southwestern desert town that's playing host to a national student science fair. Little do the organizers know that the event will be turned upside down by unexpected visitors. We'll call them unexpected visitors. Except it isn't a simple straight line narrative. This is a Wes Anderson movie. It's a movie within a stage play, complete with a narrator, Bryan Cranston as a sort of Rod Serling type, providing meta commentary, and cast members doing double duty as actors in the play and in the movie. So we're in a big city theater. It's New York in the 50s. Watching the playwright working on his script, which segues into the play itself, which actually cuts to the desert location, then shifts back to, the theater fire escape for a conversation between actors and so on. This sort of structural prestidigitation is Anderson showing off his creativity or kind of bludgeoning us with it. Self-indulgence, thy name is Wes Anderson. As much as I love me some of his movies, like I have no arguments with The Grand Budapest Hotel, The Fantastic Mr. Fox, and my favorite, Moonrise Kingdom, and as much as I am in awe of his kind of precise, visually inventive art direction, and particularly his exquisite use of pastel color palettes, his dry wit, and his oddball characters and settings, sometimes he's a little much too much,
And so let me just understand, the much too much part is the skipping around you felt was the most disconcerting aspect of this?
He was trying to play with structure, and he was also trying to make a point, I think, about how drama impacts people, how we all take on personas. I mean, there are a lot of there's subtext galore here.
Okay.
I have to say, his much too much extends to his casts, which lately are loaded with so many big names that some of them are reduced to cameos of cameos, a single scene, like one line, even just a kind of a silent gesture. I wanted to love the recent one he did, The French Dispatch, which kind of an episodic bundle of Shaggy Dog stories that was the movie equivalent of a literary magazine where the articles are hit and miss, but there's no turning the page from a lesser one to find a better one because it's a movie. You're sitting there watching a movie. You can't fast forward until it's available digitally. Anyway, a different sort of pastiche. Asteroid City has moments of crazy comedy derived from director, co-screenwriter Anderson's off-kilter worldview, the military-industrial complex and government overreach, the provincial nature of small towns, clumsy old-school parenting. This is the 1950s. Ships that pass in the night romance, and the kind of profligate lifestyles of the wealthy are targeted. All that stuff is fodder for this guy. And there are some magical moments from an embarrassment of big names, including, but not limited to, Cranston, Jason Schwartzman, Scarlett Johansson, Tom Hanks, Jeffrey Wright, Tilda Swinton, Ed Norton, Adrian Brody, Liev Schreiber, Hope Davis, Steve Carell, Matt Dillon, Hong Chow, Willem Dafoe, Margot Robbie, and is that Jeff Goldblum?
Wow.
Oh my God, maybe. So, I mean, you're looking at this who's who.
If you get it in order, you get extra points.
You're looking at this who's who and going, again, an embarrassment of riches. Schwartzman, as a widower with 3 precocious young daughters, and Johansson as a movie star with a daughter of her own.
Precocious, yeah.
Elevate the movie with kind of a lovely chemistry as they enact a brief romantic interlude. So how is this less than the sum of its parts is a question that I can only answer by saying that for all of the on-screen star power and eye candy, Asteroid City never quite takes off or lands. Still,
wow,
props are due. For all the typical Anderson quirkiness on display, there are some like deep themes here. Random but impactful interpersonal connection and the power of drama are among them. And the color scheme of the desert and the rock formations in the distance look straight out of a Warner Brothers Roadrunner cartoon directed by Chuck Jones. And this does produce one sly gag, or maybe a slight sight gag. The artifice is such that there's very little emotional impact to Asteroid City, which is located at the junction of clever and smug, Mark.
That's I love that junction, actually.
It's a less uneven step up from the French Disciple, not up to the warm...
The French Dispatch.
The French Dispatch. I'm a disciple of Wes Anderson, and I'm saying the French Dispatch was like, meh, and not up to the warm-inspired whimsy of Moonrise Kingdom.
Or Royal Tenenbaums was I thought really good.
I love many of his films.
Stuff, yeah.
So,
he tried to do too much here, it sounds like?
Yeah, he's given license to do what he wants. He's an auteur.
Yeah.
And honestly, fans are going to lap up a lot of it. I just think it's one of his lesser works, despite all the effort put in here. It's in theaters. And again, I recommend it for Wes Anderson fans. The rest of us, go seek out one of the other movies I recommended by Anderson.
I'm told Provincial, we will ding it. Ding words that I missed. I try to ding Michael. It's our new thing in real time because I can't try to. Profligate is certainly a ding word. Should have gotten it. And I am going to ding fodder. I will, yeah.
Your mother is very upset about you digging your fodder.
Digging your fodder.
Anyway,
all right. Go ahead. What's
taking
next?
the lead in a movie like the somewhat raunchy but ultimately toothless sex comedy No Hard Feelings, Jennifer Lawrence, J-Law, seems to be slumming, especially after her killer dramatic turn last year in the PTSD drama Causeway. But she's always so compelling on screen that even the kind of heavy-handed goings-on in this silly attempt at a summer romp cannot dim her light. Lawrence plays Maddie, a financially strapped screw-up whose car has been repossessed, so her job as an Uber driver is scotched. Unable to pay her property taxes, she's facing eviction from the home where she grew up in the increasingly upscale resort town of Montauk, New York.
Yeah.
So desperate, she answers an ad placed by a rich couple who are offering a nice functioning car to the right young woman willing to deflower their smart but awkward son, Percy, before he starts his freshman year at Princeton in the fall.
That is outrageous as a premise. How does this get made?
Well,
Go ahead.
I don't know. Having Lawrence navigate this occasionally amusing but inspiration-challenged throwback of a script is like swatting a mosquito with an anvil. I mean, I guess I'm still thinking about the Coyote and Roadrunner movies or something. That said, she is fun to watch, and Andrew Barth Feldman is a decent foil as the uptight Percy. And talk about not making the best use of serious talent. Percy's parents are played by Matthew Broderick, Mr. Sarah Jessica Parker, of course, and the star of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, a classic of teen comedy, and Laura Benanti, Broadway diva, and she's the woman who regularly delivered that devastating caricature of Melania Trump on The Late Show with Colbert. They're the parents here, but they're given way too little to do, so it's up to Lawrence to carry the load, and she does as well as she can. Directed and co-written by Gene Stupnitsky, I think his name is, Stupnitsky, something like that. No Hard Feelings strikes me as wait for streaming TV stuff, you know? I wish it had been funnier. I laughed at times. It just didn't crackle. And it was, again, this premise where I was like, what?
It's sort of an uncomfortable premise. On the other hand, it feels very. You know what it feels like? It feels like a 1970s premise almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But then the actors that you mentioned, Broderick among them, for the awkward. He's perfect for the younger role, actually. Back 25, 30 years ago.
When he was Ferris Bueller.
When he was Ferris Bueller, exactly.
And Laura Benanti, if you haven't seen her as Melania Trump on The Colbert Show, she is a national treasure. Great singer, again, a Broadway diva. And so they're reduced to playing mom and pop here.
So No Hard Feelings is kind of a pass, although there's some good moments.
Yeah. I would say, again, video if you're interested. I mean, Jennifer Lawrence, I just love watching her perform. If you saw the violent, explosive 2020 action movie Extraction and got a kick out of watching Chris Thor Hemsworth with short hair and no hammer as a brutally effective Aussie Black Ops mercenary with guns, knives, bombs, and a heart, I have good news. Extraction 2 is as much wild death, destruction, and daring do as its predecessor, if not more. What the hell? It's actually better. Hemsworth, barely surviving the events of the first movie. Well, Hemsworth, his character, he's playing this guy named, Tyler Rake. He's often shot and beaten, but somehow unkillable. His specialty is rescuing people from impossible circumstances. This time out, the assignment is for Rake to break into a Georgian prison to free the battered wife and children of a powerful, politically connected gangster who has arranged for his family to be locked up with him for the duration of what might be a very long sentence. The cruelty. Rake and his team begin to do what they do best, but it may not be enough when the gangster's devoted but equally vicious brother sends an army of thugs after these somewhat good guys. The prison sequence is a rapid-fire wonder that looks like a single take, and a climactic set piece in and on top of a skyscraper in Vienna is this barrage of kind of white-knuckle thrills, like Extraction, which, by the way, is available on Netflix. Extraction 2 was directed by Sam Hargrave and written by Joe Russo of the Russo brothers, the movie-making siblings whose Captain America and Avengers movies are among the best from Marvel Studios. Extraction 2 is a genuine turn-off-your-brain roller coaster ride, and conveniently enough, like Extraction, it's available on Netflix. One final note, I don't want to spoil the brief appearance by a major star in Extraction 2, but his name rhymes with Idris Elba.
Wow, that's pretty big.
What?
John wants to know if you need to see Extraction 1 to appreciate Extraction 2.
Yeah, and if you have Netflix, you can. And I say back-to-back, double feature, Saturday night, rock and roll with Hemsworth's incredibly vicious but good-hearted, deep-down Rake.
It's violence for the heart.
So available on video starting this weekend is Carmen, and don't let the languid moments fool you.
Languid is clearly
Carmen is not the Bizet opera, but a love story with original music and ballet set in the rough underworld of contemporary Mexico and the American Southwest, both rural and urban. It's emotionally potent, musically elegant, and deeply romantic, directed by choreographer Benjamin Millipede, with a haunting score by Nicholas Bertel. It concerns Carmen, a beautiful young Mexican woman who is on the run after her mother is killed in their desert home. She heads for the U.S. border with other would-be immigrants, but the crossing turns deadly when a bigoted border guard starts shooting. Carmen, played by Melissa Barrera of In the Heights and Scream, manages to escape with the help of a considerably kinder border guard named Aiden, and played by Paul Mescal of After Sun and God's Creatures, and the two must flee together. You get romance and danger and ballet, and it's all imbued with flourishes of magical realism. It may not be everyone's shot of mezcal, the tequila.
I get it.
But I thought it was lovely.
I get it.
It's available again for streaming now. Carmen, for you,
you're such a writer.
I do what I can.
So I'm sorry. There is music in Carmen.
Yes, there is, and ballet.
Ballet and music, and it's in Espanol or English?
It's in both, so subtitles and English for you English speakers. Quickly, we want to talk about a couple of movie. I'm sorry, you know what? Let's jump to television because
thank you.
I really am thrilled to inform everyone involved that Secret Invasion is here. You mentioned my love of superheroes. It's a 6-part gritty Who Do You Trust spy thriller from Marvel, with Sam Jackson reprising his role as Super Agent Nick Fury and dealing with shapeshifters who have come to Earth and were welcomed by Fury and his buddies, but are now disgruntled because they want a planet of their own. So there's this rebel faction.
And what's it called?
It's called Secret Invasion.
Secret Invasion.
Olivia Colman is in this, Oscar winner, as an MI6 operative. Amelia Clark, Ben Mendelsohn, Kingsley Ben-Adir, and who knows who else, because they keep shifting their shapes. I don't know. Secret Invasion on Disney Plus.
Wow. You really like it, though.
I do. You only need to have watched Captain Marvel for backstory, the Captain Marvel movie, which is a change of pace for a lot of this MCU stuff. Right. And finally, I want to mention, and just like that, on HBO Max, or just plain Max, and just like that, guess who's back? Sarah Jessica Parker with season 2 of the Sex and the City sequel. She's playing Carrie Bradshaw, joined by all her girlfriends, old and new, and boyfriends, new and old. And the promise of the estranged Kim Cattrall back in the fold for at least one scene as
controversial,
as man-eater Samantha. And I don't mean that she actually is a cannibal. You know what I'm talking about.
I get it. It's sort of it's a metaphorical thing.
Yeah, and just like that, we've reached the end of the segment.
And just like that, the Sarah Jessica Parker, Sex and the City kids. Michael sort of said, check it out. Fun little diversion.
If it's your cup of tea or your, I don't know, your shot of whiskey. Yeah. Maybe, or your Long Island iced tea. That would be more appropriate considering Carrie and the girls.
Yeah. Secret Invasion is the 6-episode offering that you say is really good. You only need to have seen...
Captain Marvel. Nick Fury comes in from the cold to help fight the secret invasion of shape-shifting Skrulls.
Yeah. Carmen is the story that's punctuated by... immigrants desperate for a better life, and balletic scenes as well as operatic scenes.
Romance.
It's got it all. It's got español y inglés también. It's got the English and, Extraction 2 with that sexy beast, Chris Hemsworth. You liked it. You said, hey, check out Extraction 1, then watch it for a delicious extended treat. Extraction 2.
A Netflix double feature for those of you who like this stuff.
Violence is what Michael's all about.
Oh, yes. It's not for the weak of heart.
No Hard Feelings is the movie with Jennifer Lawrence, the premise of the rich couple who want to get the virginity of their son out of the way, and they want Jennifer Lawrence to be the person to do it. Seems like, I don't know.
What?
All right. But, it's in the what category. But anyway... Michael, actually, in a mixed review on this, I would say, like Jennifer Lawrence, felt there were some moments, but also moments wasted. And in the end, it was kind of a meh. No, not making it. Yeah.
No.
And finally, the Wes Anderson film, Asteroid City. Michael felt he has achieved this level in Hollywood where the world shows up to be in his movies and big stars. But sadly, he finds Wes Anderson maybe, even though he's a huge Wes Anderson fan, Michael says that he finds this maybe self-indulgent, and Wes Anderson has lost his way a little bit in an effort to make points or make multiple points about society, about one thing or another,
and whimsy, lots of whimsy.
A lot of whimsy. So you'd say...
overloaded to the point where a big Hollywood star will be on screen for a second, cough, and that's it. Good night, everybody.
It's wild. I mean, although, maybe that was the idea, but I don't know. Well, I feel you've done it. I didn't think you could, but you've done it. So you can read Michael Snyder in the Marina Times, and you can find him here on Fridays, reviewing film, reviewing streaming. What's next week?
Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. The 5th and probably final Indiana Jones movie. And you can read all about it in the upcoming issue of the Marina Times, along with the usual doggerel that I spew.
I love it. He comes and goes on a rainbow. Go Giants.
Go! science.
Bye-bye, Michael. Wow. Always a fun appearance. Albert, Kim?
Yes.
I take this daily journey with both of you when both of you are here. When one of you is not here, I take it with whoever's here. If nobody's here, I just take it by myself. And then if I'm not here, you take it without me. I think we've covered a few of the permutations and different variations that do affect our daily journey.
Yeah.
I want to say, Albert, that I thought you did an outstanding job.
Albert, thank you.
With the curation of Florida, the balancing of so many guests coming and going. Kim, you took the hit well today, I thought.
Kim, how are you?
The revisiting of your clearly out-of-bounds remarks of yesterday.
It was well-deserved.
Yeah, that we've turned it into a little moment, and you have to be good-natured about it, which you have been.
Gonna have to close the Marky Mouth.
But you did. Kim took it quite well, which is sometimes not easy when you... You're getting the way we do it on this show.
We are already revisiting it already, so we have to get our shout-outs here at the end. And of course, we got a couple early shout-outs during the
Harry,
little recap of yesterday.
For your Marky Mouth teeny, Harry threw us $10 today, and I appreciate.
Big shout-out.
We are crowdfunded. I haven't mentioned it all day, but we are a crowdfunded show. So without your support, we go away. Al Anonymous, Kim's rogueness.
Yeah.
Marky Mouth and Chip Chip. I say Chip Chip to my cats when they missed a hit.
Gonna have to close the Marky Mouth.
Yeah, there it is. Thank you, Al. Pamela Kirby for $9.99. Thank you for the super sticker. Big shout out. Big shout out to Pamela. Thank you, guys. Really makes a difference. And Janice Burke, love Mark, Kim, Albert, and Tony. Wow, how about a 20 from Janice? Big shout out.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And William Guy. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bill Guy for the $3 hit. And Sharon Kidd is our stalwart in Willits, right? Is that where she lives? Yeah.
She's the pride of Willits. That's right.
Really appreciated the stories on the sub. Mark and Kim, prayers to the families who lost loved ones. Sharon Kidd, indeed, you're right.
Big shout out.
Big shout out, though, for the contribution and for those sentiments, and to everyone who has contributed.
Thank you.
You can put up the website, maybe if anybody has a thought, if you've been listening and think, hey, you know what, I'll give them a few dollars a month, $5 a month, for the price of a coffee a week. I'll throw them $20 a month or whatever. It helps keep us on the air. TheMarkThompsonShow.com. You can go to TheMarkThompsonShow.com, click through to Patreon or PayPal, and join our community and make a contribution. It really does matter. It's how we stay on the air, honestly. And closing thoughts, Albert, Kim, what are you doing this weekend, Albert?
I'm playing golf tomorrow, so hoping to shoot into the 80s, so I could show off on Monday that I did shoot into the 80s. I will
Kim,
take a
how
picture
about
of the
you?
scorecard if I do, and if I don't, I won't mention anything
You'll
on Monday.
pretend
Hope
it never
everyone
happened.
forgets.
Yeah, like a good golfer.
I think I might spend the weekend coming up with more inventive ways to insult you. This is kind of fun.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, some good comebacks, maybe get a little notebook out, write down some good ones.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, I'm no stranger to insults, as you know. I grew up surrounded by them in my own family.
I love you.
I am grateful to all of you who join us. And I'll look forward to Monday. We have it's a special week next week. I'll tell you about it. We've got special stuff planned, and I'll be in and out. But we'll be here live on Monday. I'm looking forward to that. I'm trying to figure out what I have this weekend. If I have anything special, I'll certainly share it. We've got a great Stories from the Sky that's teed up and ready to go for Monday. And we're always aggregating, and I might want to say aggregation, and aggregating is a ding word. And thank you who've sent us so many stories along the way. Our address is themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com.
For the Mark Thompson Show.
Yes, thank you, Shadow.
Bye-bye.
Yes. That's themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com.
Out of time. Bye.
Oh, we are out of time. Nikki's got a great show going on. That's where Kim's going, and that's where I'm going until tomorrow, or Monday, rather. Bye-bye.